Welcome to the Inspirational Corner with me, your host, Stylisha Bowden, where we encourage you here to live bold, live loud, and live authentically without apology. Welcome to another episode, everyone. And if you're listening in to this podcast at this moment, today is the inauguration. So happy Inauguration Day, a new beginning and a new day. But if you happen to listen to this podcast after, then the inauguration has passed. With that said, I want to welcome all new listeners. If this is your first time listening in to the Inspirational Corner, first of all, I want to say thank you for listening in, and I truly encourage you to hit the subscribe button on my YouTube channel so you will not miss out on any new podcast episodes. So with that said, I want to get into today's topic and episode. Today, I'm going to be discussing and talking about the self-care plan and establishing your own self-care plan. We are only in maybe the third week. And when you listen into this podcast, it'll probably be the fourth week because I do my podcast every second and fourth Thursday of the month. So you won't miss out on any podcast if you subscribe. And with that said, self-care, especially at the height of a new year, is so important. It's funny, I don't usually be on Twitter, but I was recently just on Twitter and I seen that Christina Aguilera had posted on Twitter. She said self-care for all of 2021, and I truly agree with her. I believe self-care is important. However, many of us really don't even know how to get started. And I just believe in this new phenom or new age of promoting self-love, self-care, and self-confidence that a lot of people need some guidance because they feel a little bit clueless about how to start their journey and where to begin. And I truly wanted to talk about today my self-care journey and how I started and this phenomenon around the word self-care, especially after we went through all the things that we went through in the last 4 years, and especially last year in 2020. It was so many mental and emotional things going on throughout last year that, I believe that self-care is more than just nails done, hair done, and all that stuff. It's, so much deeper than that. And so I feel like if you have had different experiences and encountered things in your past that dealt with mental, emotional, verbal, or physical trauma, then starting your path on this self-care lifestyle, it can be hard because if all you are used to is traumatic and dramatic things in your life, and you're so used to being connected to toxic people, toxic things, toxic places, and just all around toxicity, then I think it's important that you understand how much self-care is important and how it changed my life. I can truly say, and I talk about this on my other episodes. I think at my first episode actually of the podcast about why I created the Inspirational Corner and my journey. And I discuss how in 2007, my 2-year-old passed away. And if you want to hear more about that, I'm not going to get into it on this podcast, but I will link that episode in the show notes. And I was just discussing some things in my journey and the different mental and emotional transitions I went through. And I know for me, in 2015, I was introduced to the concept of self-care. And at the time, self-care wasn't talked about as much as it is talked about right now in today's world, just like mental health. Mental health, self-care, self-worth, self-love, self-confidence, everything that begins with self is discussed more now than we ever heard before. I know in 2015, I really started my journey in this self-care world. And for me, I only had like a surface level or understanding of what self-care really meant. But as I continue to kind of do some research, and I was just looking for me healing and to move on, and to find some peace of mind and some sanity within my own journey of, you know, of the loss of my youngest daughter and raising my oldest daughter. It was a lot going on at the time in my life. And so self-care was important to me. And because it was triggered by the loss of my youngest daughter, I would, for several years, go through so many mental and emotional transitions that I didn't even understand. And later on, I really started to understand that self-care was something that I needed. It was something that really I needed, definitely, to show for myself, but also my daughter, and to take on this mantle to mentally and emotionally fuse together my sanity, because I was at wit's end. And in 2011, because my youngest daughter, she passed away in 2007, and I didn't really start seeking therapy until 2011. I was just really still grieving, but my grieving wasn't depression. It was anger. It was anger. And I carried that anger, and I didn't properly grieve. To me, I didn't properly grieve because I was stoic. I didn't have any emotions. I didn't show any emotions, and I thought, for me, that is how I internalize the grief and the pain and everything that I went through during that time. And when I finally went to counseling, I realized and was confronted with the idea that I was suffering from multiple things that I may have heard of, but I didn't really think, that I would fit in that category. I knew something wasn't right with me from the time she passed away, the time in raising my oldest daughter, and the things I was dealing with. It was just, I didn't feel normal. I just felt like I I got dropped in this pit, and I fell to the lowest part of the pit, and that's how I felt, like I was scraping my way out of this dark pit during the time of the loss of my youngest daughter. And it was a dark time for me, very dark. And when I finally did seek out therapy, I was confronted with the things that I was suffering with, which was PTSD, post traumatic stress syndrome or disorder, GAD, which is generalized anxiety disorder, as well as mood swings and anger issues, like I talked about before. And I had all this going on all at once, so it was all these multiple things going on: PTSD, generalized anxiety disorder, all these different mood swings, anger issues. I had a lot of anxiety, insomnia, you know, um, and I still deal with these things. I still deal with these things. And at the beginning of it all, it was coming to me all at once. I didn't really know how to deal with it. I would just be angry. I would have anger outbursts, and it affected me and my daughter's relationship at the beginning, of the loss for both of us. It was just so much. I was angry. I was frustrated. I couldn't sleep. I always felt tormented at night. And it was, like I said, it was a lot of deep things going on with me. However, when I was able to really come to the realization of how I just pretty much internalized my own trauma, this is really, it is when everything hit me that I needed something to deal with all the things that I was dealing with and still deal with: PTSD, generalized anxiety disorder, like I said before, and, mood swings and the anger issues, I needed to create a self-care plan for myself to cope with all the things that I was presented with in my life that changed me as a person. Um, the death of my youngest daughter changed my entire life. It changed my oldest daughter's entire life. And so I, ever since then, since 2007, me and my daughter, my oldest daughter, we don't see life the same way other people see life because of how much this affected us. And I know for me, I wanted to go deeper into the ideal or the self-care phenomenon and journey. I knew that the first step for me was truly to come to terms with how it was affecting my mental health, my emotional health, which eventually started affecting every area of my life. Me being a mother, my daughter's life, and how much it was affecting her when she was younger. And it was so much. It was a lot. And it's hard when you're in a situation that you have no idea how to express yourself, when you're internalizing every thought, every emotion. And for me, that wasn't healthy. And I didn't realize how unhealthy it was because I'm a person that do internalize a lot of things. And now, at this point in my life, I am still learning because I am truly a work in progress. As I still learn how to cope with PTSD, my anxiety, my anger. And I'm so grateful that when I started doing the research on the self-care and understanding what I need to do for myself. And I know in 2011, the biggest thing that I was introduced to from one of my therapists was meditation. And I can truly tell you and express to you, meditation has changed my life. I know there's a shift and a difference in me when I meditate and when I don't meditate. There's a total two different people. And so meditation is a big part of my life, as well as with other things like prayer and journaling and all the other things. So with that, I knew I had to start attacking the deep rooted mental issues I had and start creating a self-care plan for myself. And I think about it now, I need to kind of like update my self-care plan. And to me, a self-care plan helps you cope. It helps you cope with the things in your life. Maybe you're not dealing with a mental or emotional health issue, but you're dealing with the loss of your job, the loss of, of a marriage or a relationship, period. Or you may just be dealing with everything that we dealt with in last year and thankful for a new year. But I think it's important, like I said, especially at the beginning of the first month of this year, that we create a self-care plan. And so when you start creating a self-care plan, like I started my journey, like I said, in 2015, I began to create a plan which truly, like I said, evolved over time. And I probably need to sit down this year, which I am going to do that, and do a new plan for myself and do things that I know really works for me now, coping with my anxiety and PTSD, mood swings, and my insomnia, because when your anxiety is high, it can mess with your sleep pattern. I know for me, it's hard for me to go to sleep sometimes at night. And it deals with all the things that I've discussed and talked about. And I'm not ashamed. And I just wanted to put out this disclaimer. I don't think that anybody should be ashamed of anything that they've been through. I wanted to talk about my journey because I think it will help somebody else. especially knowing what a self-care plan is. And you have to curate the self-care plan for yourself as an individual and what will be helpful to you and the different things that you've been through. And so I know that my self-care plan had to cover more than just one or two areas. My self-care plan had to cover my mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, social and relational and financial self-care as a whole. And when you start to establish a self-care plan, those things are the main subcategories you're going to have for your self-care. And you might have some surface level things in your self-care plan, like pedicure, manicure, to go shopping, because those were my like surface level things. But you're going to also need to have some deeper things to maintain your self-care when things start falling down around you, to have a strong foundation when stuff hits the fan. And I think that's important. And so I want to give you at least 3 ways you can start establishing your self-care plan for yourself. The first thing is acknowledge the past traumatic experience. I think that's important. When you go deeper to identify the experiences in your past, then you can understand how it affects you in your adulthood and how it's affecting you right now. And then you can gain clarity on how to move forward and where to begin in your journey with self-care. Like I just discussed with you earlier about my journey and the things that triggered my mental and emotional self-care, and how I began to go deeper and realize that I need some coping mechanisms when I am, filled with high anxiety, when I am angry, when I am angry, and when I do have a mood swing, or when I just feel like I'm about to melt down. As the more and more that my self-care plan has evolved, I can realize what triggers me, and I can instantly be like, okay, I need to meditate, or I need to pray, or I need to write something down, or, whatever it is. I may not be able to do it in that moment, but I could say, okay, I need to remove myself from this person or this environment. So I think that's important. Number 2, define what self-care means to you. Self-care won't mean the same to me as it will mean to you. So because we're all individual people, I believe that when you start establishing your self-care plan, make sure that you're putting things within your self-care plan that matters to you to help you heal and move forward. And when you spend time to assess what does self-care mean to you, then you'll be able to define each an area, like the subcategories that I talked about, like the mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, financial, social, relational, and all those different areas. You'll be able to say, this is what I need to do to maintain and to cope. A lot of times we have different mental health challenges or different emotional and societal things going on, but we are not taught how to cope with these things. What we have been saying from last year, the quote unquote new normal, how to deal with this new normal and function in life. This whole concept of new normal, how to function. So I think that's important. And the last thing I want to discuss is creating a self-care plan, because after you confront your past experiences, your past traumas, whether it was childhood traumas, whether it was, in the middle of your life, or maybe midlife, of your life traumas, then you can define your self-care. Once you define your self-care, then, and what it means to you, and the definition that you're gonna give to it in those different subcategories that I talked about, then it's up to you now to create a self-care plan. Once you collect all these details of what it looks like to you, then your self-care plan can be established on a strong foundation. And I think it's important to do that. in my experience in the last let me see, my daughter has been gone for the last since 2007, so the last 15, 14 years. In the last 14 years, it's been a journey for me and my oldest daughter. And I think I discussed this on my maybe a couple of episodes about doing a mental health check. I like to do a mental health check with her and making sure she's good. And I let her know what's going on with me when I'm feeling really, you know, adrenaline rush and anxiety and my mood swings and things are triggered in me. I have to let her know, hey, I need, some time, or I'm, I need to get away, or whatever the case is. And I know right now during the pandemic, it's really been hard for us to kind of get away. But even if you need to take a drive, or do a staycation, you know what I'm saying? Go to a hotel in your area. I have done that, and I think it's very therapeutic. Even me, I have made Sundays and Mondays my self-care day. I always ask my daughter during the week, is there anything you want to do? Because we're heavy on family time in my household. Me and my daughter, we love spending time together. We love doing things. I always try to keep it fun. Even though she older, she have her own life. She hang out with her friends. But at the end of the day, we like doing our own thing. We big on family. And so I always ask her, is it something you want to do? A movie you want to watch? And if not, then I let her know, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm doing a little staycation. I need, whatever it is that I need. I need to go to the library, read my favorite book, just an unlimited time of interruption. So when you build your self-care plan this year, I hope that you keep all these things that I've discussed in mind, because your mental, emotional health is should be at the top of the list in 2021. And this is only part one of the self-care plan series. I'm going to be doing part 2 in 2 more weeks, and I'm going to be discussing after you establish your self-care plan. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the subcategories, the mental, the emotional, and I'm going to share with you all, the things that I have on my self-care plan that has helped me or that has evolved over the years. I truly enjoyed sharing this topic with you, and I hope that it helped you in some way. And here at the Inspirational Corner, we always encourage you to live bold, live loud, and live authentically. Everyone, have a beautiful week. And until next episode, be blessed.